No, not inside the house. And that's why this is not a no mistakes build challenge. I can't even do the 10-minute build challenge, let alone no mistakes. Are you nuts? Hello, my lovely viewers, and welcome. I am Kira, a romantic ace, and welcome to this speed build. So we're diving right in today with no intro because this one is a monster. This is my entry for the Sims' new Sparked challenge called Golden Age. So the idea of this is to create content for Elder Sims, you know, the thing we don't have in The Sims 4. Basically, your elder Sims living out their golden years, as they're called, you know, living their best lives. So there's, of course, just like before, the 3 types of challenge. The character challenge, where you create an elder Sim and create a Sim. The build challenge, where you create a house for them. And, of course, the storyteller challenge, where you actually create their story and, you know, put it in a video or something like that. And for me, since I'm primarily a builder, yes, I did create a household to go with this, but I decided to create a house, and for this we needed to have a, you know, house for them where there was a room dedicated to a truly unique hobby. And this also shows another one of the weaknesses of The Sims 4, where we don't really have dedicated hobbies. Almost everything that we do is tied to a career at some point. Painting, for instance, there's the painter career. Writing, there's the writer career. Cooking, there's the culinary career. You know, fitness, there's the bodybuilder career, the athletics career. There's just really not a lot, and there's actually not a lot that really feels unique for an elder. You know, you've got knitting, which everybody expects an elder Sim really to be doing that. You've got like potion making. Well, you know, we've all got kind of like the old witch or wizard stereotype, right? You know, same thing with like spell casting. Fabrication, but again, fabrication is tied to, I think, 2 different careers actually, the freelancer career and the civic designer career. So for me, what I did was archaeology. So this is Laura Croft's mansion, not to be confused with Lara Croft. No, 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 no. Laura Croft, for reasons of trademark. But so her hobby is archaeology. So she is a rich woman. So this is the old Craft manor, right? You know, old money, just has always been rich, always lived in this upscale neighborhood in Willow Creek, right next door to the Goth family. And, you know, she's never had to work a day in her life. So what has she done with all that time? Well, she's been training, you know, physically, mentally, etc., to get through all of the traps and the tribulations in the jungles around the temples in Selva Dorada, which I thought was really fun because then this isn't just archaeology that she has to be good at, right? If you're actually going to go into the jungles and you're going to collect the artifacts yourself, then you have to have like pretty good logic, pretty good fitness skill, pretty good fishing skill even. Gardening skill, I think, also helps. There's lots of different skills that you actually have to be pretty high in order to do really well going through the jungles. So this gave me a lot of stuff that I had to put in this build, which is good because this is a 40 by 30 lot. This is the Park Shore lot in Willow Creek, right next door to the Goth house. So, you know, I didn't just have to have one room. Like, if I had to pick one room that is the hobby room, it's really the archaeology room. But we also have a home gym. We have a library for, you know, a spot to raise her logic skill, really. We have some stuff in the backyard for her to raise her fitness skill. And I also gave her herbalism, because I can't remember for sure if any of the little, like, tests in Jungle Adventure require herbalism skill. I doubt it because that's shipped with Outdoor Retreat, but also sometimes these packs do synergize with each other, and so if you have Outdoor Retreat, it could bring up something that is related to the herbalism skill that's unique to Outdoor Retreat. I don't remember for sure. It's been a little while since I've played it quite that much, but we might be surprised. So Laura lives here with her butler, Mallory. They've been friends forever. You know, Mallory, she probably hired her at some point. Mallory's not old enough to have been with the family forever, but she lives here with Mallory. This is really Mallory's house when it comes down to it, because Laura doesn't necessarily spend a ton of time here. She's mostly in Selva Dorada because she's not just a Tomb Raider. She is actually working with the Selva Doradians to sort of save the history from the temples, because of course, you know, there's a lot of people coming in and just taking the artifacts and selling them, and the Salvadoradians are losing their culture. You know, they're not always just like sending them back to the museum. So that's Laura's job, is to go into the temples and basically rescue the artifacts, prep them up, send them back to the Salvadoradians. They do allow her to keep some of the artifacts, basically to keep up appearances. So the entire bottom floor of this house is dedicated to that keeping up appearances thing. She's got to appear like she's a rich woman, you know, just life of leisure, right? She's got all these fancy things downstairs, and her fixtures and everything are meant to communicate her wealth. And so then people are just like, oh, she just collects artifacts. And she's like, yeah, sure, I collect them. I'm definitely not going into the temples myself, and I'm definitely not punching Nazis to keep them from getting the artifacts. Nope, I just collect them. You know, I'm good at archaeology. Sometimes the Archaeological Society, you know, they send me stuff to authenticate it for them. But yeah, I definitely, when I'm vacationing, I'm going to Sulani. Yeah, I have a vacation home there. So I thought this was a really fun and interesting idea. And like I said, it gave me a lot to do so that I could fill up this great big 40 by 30 lot, because I did end up putting this family in my save file. So Laura, Mallory, and their two cats, they're two jungle cats that followed Laura home after one of their adventures. Chloe is a black and white Bengal cat, so she would not have blended in with the jungle. She wasn't going to survive, so Laura brought her home. And then Delilah just looked at her. She's a little like Black Panther cat, and she was like, no, this is my person. So I'm going home with her, and that's that. And so Mallory is the one who kind of like takes care of the cats when they don't go back to Salvadorada with Laura. But I thought this whole family was really cute, and I decided in my save file, because now after this I only have one lot and family in Willow Creek, and then Willow Creek in my save file is done. And this neighborhood was going to be the neighborhood where every family has a secret. So it started with the Goths, because in The Sims 4, Bella Goth is a secret agent. But she's also this high society woman. She's very high profile. Like, she's very recognizable on the street in, you know, that classic red dress with her long black hair. You wouldn't expect someone like her to be a secret agent because she's so high profile. So in the very fancy Victorian mansion that I gave them, she's got this basement where she's got basically her like secret agent lair. You know, she's got all of her equipment down there, her computers and stuff. I think I even gave her a punching bag. And then across the street, I built what is essentially the polar opposite of the Goth house. It's still a Victorian, but it's very light, bright, pink and white, you know, cutesy, large multi-generational family living there. And their secret is that they are spellcasters. It's a bunch of lesbian spellcasters. Which I thought was absolutely adorable. I very much enjoy that family. And then this household, of course, the secret is that this, you know, rich old lady, you know, perfectly privileged, you know, old money, never worked a day in her life, is off, you know, trekking through the jungle every few weeks and, you know, hiding this, you know, secret, archaeology operation essentially that she's got going on. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the fourth house and family yet. We'll see as I get along, because a lot of times with these builds, what I do is I build the house and then kind of the story for the family starts to gel as I start to furnish it. So I'll decide, like, you know, roughly how many Sims I want to live there. You know, I kind of know whether or not they're going to have kids at the time, but we'll see who Laura's neighbors end up being. But I had a lot of fun with this. I did end up using, this house has a lot of stuff from vampires, a lot of stuff from Discovery University, and then a lot of these windows and doors are from Strangerville, again, because, like I said, Strangerville just works, well, half of Strangerville works so well for these types of builds. The other half of Strangerville is like science labs and trailer parks, so it's a weird pack. It's a weird pack in more ways than they intended. And I had kind of been trying to avoid using this flooring from Vampires because I didn't really like the fact that it was on a diagonal, but it ended up being the right texture and color for this. So I like it. I like the way it came out. I wanted this kitchen to look like it had been redone at some point. I didn't want it to look like it was original to the house because Mallory the butler, again, this is kind of her house. She is in the culinary career. She is a caterer. So I figured she would want a nice kitchen. So, you know, this is mostly cool kitchen stuff in here. But we end up putting in like the nice stainless steel appliances and stuff. I really like cool kitchen stuff for the look of a kitchen that has been renovated. And renovated recently, because it's very much that like HGTV new kitchen look to me. And I even thought about putting the cool kitchen stuff stove words in there, but I figured she would rather have a gas stove than electric, because I've said this before, but it's a lot easier to cook on a gas stove than it is to cook on an electric stove. You have more control over your heat. I do not like cooking on an electric stove, even though that's all I've got right now. But here I'm starting to work on the library, so trying to decide whether I wanted to really make these look built in, and they just didn't. These ones just don't tile as well. These are from Strangerville again. The ones from Discover University tile okay, but I wanted to have slots where I could put artifacts or statues or decorations or something in here. So we have the chess table for leveling up her logic skill, and then this little chair in the middle that I figure is where, you know, you sit and you like do your research, right? So I end up putting later on one of the clutter items from Discover University that's supposed to be like your homework, your university homework, because I thought that looked like, you know, oh, maybe she was looking up some provenance or something and she was making notes. So I thought that came out really cool. And then this main living area is just so huge, and I could not decide what I wanted to do with it. I thought about using this couch from Vintage Glamour, because this is the type of house where I could have used that, but I didn't really like the colors, is what it came down to. The swatches in Vintage Glamour are really weird. I like Vintage Glamour for the CAS items. They've got some really nice, like, formal hairstyles for female Sims, and they've got some, like, gorgeous dresses and stuff for female Sims. But as far as the build items, it's kind of lackluster, and like I said, the swatches end up looking really weird. So I end up going with these love seats that are from the base game, and then these chairs from Get Together that kind of match. But this was so huge, and I hadn't yet decided that Laura had these cats. So at first I was like, well, I'll put a piano out here, because that's a good thing to use to fill the space, is the piano. And then I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll put that in the study that is just off to the left. And then, you know, we've got this globe bar. Okay, sure, definitely a thing that this type of house would have. But as I was looking through the activities section in the miscellaneous, that's when I found these cat trees and stuff. And I was like, oh, perfect. Because these big cat trees, these fancy ones, are always a little bit difficult to fit in builds, because usually I do much smaller houses. So to fit in something that is that size is sometimes a struggle. But here I had all this room. So these are very, very spoiled cats. Like, to the point where at first I was like, there's one cat. And then it's like, oh no, there is so much stuff here. There's definitely more than one cat. And, you know, using that little nook that I had left there to hide a litter box, because this bathroom downstairs is just a half bath and it wasn't a big enough space to stick the litter box in there. But especially if you have these, you know, zappy laser eyes cat litter boxes where there wouldn't be any smell, for example, I figured it was perfectly reasonable just to have it tucked into a corner, because Sims don't care. So it ended up working out fine. Ended up being really pleased with that. I love those scratching posts, those tree branch shaped scratching posts. Those are my favorite ones for cats. I think those are so cool. And then this like formal like sitting area, I ended up turning into the music room, because literally this is so huge. I have 2 grand pianos in here. So I figured, maybe one of the things she does is she has like dueling pianos night or something. I did see a performance once of that, and it was super cool. There was parts of the show that were actually like dueling pianos, right? Kind of like you have the dueling banjos thing. But one of the songs that they did was that song from Quest for Camelot, you know, the one that Celine Dion sings called The Prayer, that nobody knows what movie that is from, but lots of artists cover it. The music group Celtic Woman covered it at one point, Chloe Agnew did, and changed the lyrics a little bit, because in the movie this is the mother praying that her daughter Kaylee will be safe as she goes off to essentially try to save the kingdom. Because Quest for Camelot is an Arthurian legend retelling, essentially. It's a kids movie. It's from the late 90s or early 2000s. If you haven't seen it, it's very cute. I really love it because one of the protagonists in it, Gareth, is blind. And it does not end the movie. Like, there's magic in it, of course, because it's a children's fantasy, and the whole thing revolves around Excalibur, the fabled magic sword, right? So, you know, you really almost expect, like, no, they're gonna cure him at the end, aren't they? Because even at the end, they've got this, like, happy ending where, you know, the magic ends up setting some of the things right that were made wrong by the villain's interference. And I was like, oh no, they're gonna give him his sight back. Oh no, oh no. And if they do, they don't say so. And they don't communicate it visually either. Like, his eyes still have cataracts. It's their visual communication that he's blind. So, like, I love the fact that they don't cure him. He has his adaptive means of getting through the world. He has a falcon companion that helps him. It's a seeing eye falcon, essentially, which I think is very cute. Instead of having a seeing eye dog, he has a seeing eye falcon. So definitely recommend you check it out. It is very cheesy, but it is a star-studded cast that no one asked for. Cary Elwes voices Gareth. Does not do his singing voice. Genuinely, I recommend this just for you to hear who they picked for Cary Elwes' singing voice. It's hysterical. Please look it up. Quest for Camelot, Gareth's song. Please do it. It's so funny. Leanne Rimes did a song for it. This was at the height of Leanne Rimes' popularity, before, you know, the whole thing with her father as her manager really blew up in her face, as it usually does with child stars. Leanne Rimes, if you don't know, was a child country music star in the late 90s. She also is the one who did the songs for Coyote Ugly. That was in her period where she was rebelling against her dad, and it's very obvious. But the song she did for that movie is very cute as well. What's her name? Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour is the speaking voice of the character that Celine Dion is the singing voice for, which is not nearly as much of a mishmash. And the one you'll never believe, Steve Perry from Journey is the singing voice of Pierce Brosnan, and is not a mishmash. I did not know until a couple years ago. I loved that movie as a kid. Now, granted, at the time, I didn't know who half the people were in it. The only name that I recognized was Jane Seymour, because my mom used to watch Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, which, yay, cultural appropriation in a TV show, woohoo! But, so that was the only name I recognized at the time. But now I'm like, oh my god, the guy from Journey is the singing voice of Pierce Brosnan. Oh my! I did not know that was a thing we could do. And like I said, I had no idea, because he does not sound like Steve Perry from Journey. He sounds like Pierce Brosnan. And I had my mother listen to the song that he sings in that movie after the fact, like years after the fact, once I found out. And I was like, Mom, listen to this voice. You will never, ever, ever guess who this is. And my mom listened to it. She listens for a few minutes and she goes, Patrick Stewart. And I was like, you know, I can see it. You're wrong. But for a left field guess, I thought that was very good and very funny. So I guess he also sounds like Patrick Stewart, but I can also see Patrick Stewart sounding a little bit like this voice. So, yeah, the song United We Stand from Quest for Camelot, the solo is sung by Steve Perry from Journey. Also, really, just like, seriously, check out the movie. You can find it on YouTube, because I know I did. It's probably on some streaming service somewhere. It's very silly. Gary Oldman is the villain in it, and he tries to sing, and he should not have. I think from... Oh no, I'm thinking of Jeremy Irons. Never mind, because I was going to say, I think he blew out his voice right before it, but no, that was Jeremy Irons doing the voice of Scar in The Lion King. But yeah, he does his own singing, and I'm sorry, Gary, but you really shouldn't have. But like I said, I recommend it just to see Gareth. Gareth in that movie is great. He's a very well done hero, I think. Anyway, back to the build. You can see I'm building right now the home gym and then also getting started on the archaeology room. Those mud splatters, by the way, are from cats and dogs. They're the messy muddy paw prints, because you have the paw prints that are very easily recognizable, and then those ones look a little bit more like mud splatter. So I threw those down on top of those tarps because I figured, yeah, Laura doesn't really clean up after herself very much. And Mallory doesn't go in there a lot because she's like, I don't want to touch anything or ruin anything because, you're not supposed to get the oils from your hands on the artifacts and stuff. So she's like, that's just Laura's space. And if she asks me to come in there and help her clean up, I will. But otherwise, I just don't touch that. That's her business. That's her private space almost. And then Mallory's room is Mallory's private space. But we also had to put out just a bunch of cat toys. So I'm just laying them out for right now. I end up scattering them all through the house toward the end of the video. But I figured, with these 2 high-energy jungle cats, you're gonna need a lot of toys, right? So, having one in, like, Mallory's room, because I figured, of course, when Laura's away, the cats are gonna get lonely, and so they probably come in and hang out with Mallory. And because Laura's away a lot, she's usually off in Selvadorada, right? And when she's home, she's usually training. So I wanted Laura's bedroom to be pretty generic, not have a lot of decorations in it. Again, not really look like she lives there, because she kind of doesn't. Like I said, this is kind of Mallory's house. But I really loved furnishing this room because Jungle Adventure has so many cool decorative pieces. Those like wall pieces and stuff. So that room ends up coming together really well. And I'm using these portraits from like Spooky Stuff is where those 2 are from, and then also Get Together. I figured, because again, this is, old money type of house. I figured those were Laura's ancestors, which I don't know how they got their money, because we don't really seem to have colonial history in The Sims 4, thank goodness. Obviously, since it's kind of based on the United States for the most part, you can kind of assume there's a colonial history. But we can pretend that they got their old family money just from, like, capitalism, for example. So, I don't know, maybe that's better. But something about Mallory also is that her lifetime aspiration is to be a best-selling author. So I have that little study up there for a spot for her to write, and then also for Sims to just be able to use the computer, because computers are really useful in The Sims 4 for like getting fun up and for doing research and stuff like that. So, a spot for her to try to live her dreams of being a best-selling author. Because, like I said, she's basically just around the house taking care of the cats and working her catering job. So this is something easy that she can do on the side, which I thought was fun. And fortunately for this style of build, there are a lot of different rugs and stuff that I can use that leaves this this build looking really good. Those big things by the fireplace, by the way, those are from Perfect Patio Stuff. Those are actually grilling tools, and I sized them up so they would look like, the shovel and the brush and stuff that you sit by your fireplace, your wood-burning fireplace, to scoop the ashes out and so forth. So I think it came out looking really good. Yeah, kind of trying to just get this place to look full, because it's so big, and especially downstairs with the medium wall height. I so rarely use medium wall height because it's hard for me to fill that space. It ends up feeling so empty because the walls are tall. But I wanted to use it here because I wanted to use those windows from Strangerville, and I wanted to use the doors and the friezes and stuff from Discover University, which you can't do with short wall height. So, and if I can't use these giant vases from Jungle Adventure in a build with medium wall height, then I ask you, where else can I use them? But trying to clutter things up. Now, another thing about this challenge, if you're doing the build challenge, is you can't use any mods or CC that are for building. So you can't use the tool mod, for example, although, like, the tool mod for this would really just allow you to do, like, different rotations on different axes for items. Obviously, placing objects off the lot won't really help you when the challenge is to, like, place a lot, right? But you also can't use the red shelf, the OMSP shelf that I use for cluttering, which is fine for the most part. You'll see me when I go to clutter sinks and stuff and put like the soap dispenser and the toothbrushes on there. Those are the same height as a kitchen countertop, so you can use the kitchen countertop as your shelf, and that works out really well. But for stuff like this, like, you raise and lower using the 9 and 0 keys, but these console tables are not at one of the heights that the 9 key raises to. So, and then this picture from Dine Out does not slot to these tables, and I do not know why. It's not actually that big. But you can see when I tried to raise it up and have it sit, the tray clipped through. And I don't like that. And it's like, if you're gonna have that be, like, you know, kind of the recommended method, right, of raising and lowering your items, then have your surfaces sit at those heights. I didn't think it was that hard, but apparently it is. It's one thing for, like, shelves and stuff on the wall, because those you can adjust the height of, but you can't adjust the height of a kitchen countertop, for instance. You can't adjust the height of these tables and stuff. So it's like, it's very exhausting. But coming in here and cluttering up the kitchen a little bit, because, like I said, this is pretty big. And so I wanted it to look like somebody was actually, you know, living in here and cooking in here. Because, again, Mallory, her career is the culinary career. So just giving her lots of stuff in here. Again, without my red shelf, I couldn't really clutter up the top of the refrigerator, because usually what I'll do is I'll put the cookbooks, God, English today, from Cool Kitchen stuff. I'll put those up there with, like, some canisters and stuff. But, you know, if I try to raise and lower using the 9 key, they very obviously clip through. So I couldn't do that, unfortunately. Plus, like, in this kitchen, there's enough counter space, I didn't really need it. And also, with it being this fancy, I figured, this is a little too high class to be having clutter on top of the fridge, you know? You've got a whole pantry. What do you need to be cluttering the top of the fridge for, right? But I do really love those cookbooks. I think they look really good. We also have in here an espresso engine, because, you know, we're fancy in this house. And then I ended up putting these lemons from Backyard Stuff next to the tea brewer, because I figured, you know, oh, tea. And then these olives are from Dine Out, and I ended up putting these in here on the bar because, you know, martinis. It's the olives for the martinis, obviously. And then these curtains, I think, are the best ones for, like, formal spaces, which, again, they only work with medium wall height. So, but it ends up working really nice with these windows from Strangerville. And then these blinds, which are not the best blinds in the game. I still maintain that the best blinds in the game are the ones from My First Pet stuff, which I do end up using upstairs. You know, like, the stuff in My First Pet stuff is fine. The principle of My First Pet stuff is terrible, in that it contains a lot of stuff that is useless unless you have cats and dogs. Like, that's terrible. But, you know, like I said, those are probably the notes from when she was researching something. And now I'm cluttering up some of these shelves in the bookcases, which I think comes out looking really cool in the end. The version that you get when you download this off the gallery, by the way, is going to look different than the way I have it furnished in here. Because what I ended up doing after the fact was going on the gallery and downloading a room with a bunch of the artifacts in it, the cleaned up, like, prettied up artifacts. Because you can't find the ones that are cleaned up and shined up in the debug catalog. You can only find the ones that haven't been cleaned off and authenticated yet, essentially. So I wanted ones that she could kind of have on display, because, again, she's kind of maintaining this facade that she's just a collector, a connoisseur, if you will. She buys these, or, you know, yeah, she has a little hobby on the side where, you know, she does some work for the Archaeological Society, but it's nothing serious. She's certainly not going through these temples herself and collecting them herself, and she's definitely not punching any Nazis in the face, which I realized, you know, some time ago when Journey to Batuu shipped. It's like, oh no, we actually have, like, basically fascists in The Sims 4. Oh, great. Because, I'm sorry, if you're still on the train that that's not what the First Order is in the new Star Wars trilogy, then you are very wrong. They very much have a fascist ideology, and like, literally, Kylo Ren is stated as having been a neo-Nazi. So don't know what to tell you. That's just the way it is. But I think these dueling pianos in here are so funny. Like, what else do you do with this space? What else do you do when you're rich but have, you know, a pair of grand pianos in your parlor? But here I'm kind of using these wall sconces to decorate the walls where there's not really space to put anything else. And with medium wall height, I'm never quite sure where a Sim's head height is because, you know, usually I'm using the taller doors as well. So I'm hoping that those sconces aren't ridiculously low, but we'll see when you play it, I guess. I always forget that that rug from City Living has those kind of older style ornate looking swatches because in the catalog, it just looks like it's a contemporary style rug. So I didn't realize until a little while ago that it also had those other swatches. And I was like, oh yeah, I should probably use those at some point. But doing a little bit of work on the outdoor patio now, having this nice grill that she can use because that's how you prep some of the herbalism stuff is on the grill. And you can see here I'm dropping a room of plants, so you can get this off the gallery as well. I'll put links in the description that you can look at. This room, however, does not have the stuff from Outdoor Retreat, so it won't help with herbalism, unfortunately. And when I tried to place a room that had all of the collectibles that had the plants from Outdoor Retreat, my game crashed. Because, like I said, it's just not playing nicely with the graphics cards. So I end up doing that off camera. And again, the backyard will look a little bit different from this version when you download it from the gallery. But, you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm kind of playing on borrowed time with this brand of graphics card because as far as I can tell, these problems have existed since 2016. They just happen to hit me now, and it is fundamentally a problem with The Sims 4 playing with the AMD brand of graphics cards. Everyone who is having this problem has an AMD GPU. Because I think that's actually the only brand you can get with an Apple computer. It's exclusive to Apple. And that's also probably why the Sims 4 doesn't work with it, is because no one else uses it. And like I said, Apple has a real stranglehold on how they let developers interact with their stuff. Because they keep saying it's security. A lot of times it's because Apple wants to be able to sell their own version of a piece of software. That's actually what I thought it was going to be when they almost bricked OBS with the Catalina operating system. I genuinely expected Apple to turn around and be like, nope, we're making our own recording and streaming software, and I haven't heard anything. And as far as I know, the developers of OBS have actually figured out how to make Catalina work with, or make OBS work with Catalina without having to essentially damage the operating system and undo some of the changes that the operating system makes from Mojave. But this is the reason you won't see me upgrading to Catalina anytime soon, is I don't want to break OBS. I don't want to not be able to do this anymore because, like, I really just enjoy doing this. It's, you know, I might as well show people what I'm doing. It's not even like, you know, oh, I might as well monetize my hobbies. It's like, you know, this is something I really enjoy doing. And I like to share it with other people. I like you all to kind of be able to see what I do, and like maybe you can get some ideas, and you know, maybe if you don't want to try to download this monster lot off the gallery but you want to see what's in it, you can just watch a speed build and then you can listen to me rant about movies that I liked in my childhood. We haven't even gotten on to Anastasia or Practical Magic yet, because there were genuinely like a handful of movies I was obsessed with as a kid. Unfortunately, one of them was Pocahontas when it came out. I was like 8. And that was the first, like, I think that was the first Disney princess I had seen that didn't end up getting married to her love interest in the end, or at least an implied marriage. So I think that was part of what appealed to me because, oh my god, I was so aero. And I didn't know at the time, because I didn't even know that was a thing. But it really appealed to me that there was, you know, a plot line that didn't end in marriage, you know. Even though there was a romantic relationship in it that should not have been there, because if you don't know the real story of Pocahontas, I genuinely recommend you look it up, but there is a massive trigger warning on those stories for sexual assault and rape. And if that doesn't give you a clue as to how badly Disney screwed up that story, then, yeah, like I said, go Google it. But, and then after that it was Mulan, because, you know, it's implied that they're in a relationship, but they're in a relationship. They're not like instantly getting married. Also, Mulan just really appealed to me as, you know, somebody who didn't feel like she fit in her world. I am very, very sorry about the new Mulan movie, where for some reason Disney somehow made it worse. I did not think they could make it worse, but apparently they made it worse. And then also like Quest for Camelot, where the marriage is kind of implied, I guess, but the tone of the movies was so different. And then also Anastasia, where again, like, I guess there's an implied marriage, but the tone of the movie was just so different. Yeah, sure, the Romanovs are definitely not to be, you know, idolized. You know, Nicholas II was an absolutely incompetent ruler. But, you know, that's like what happens when you have a story where, like, a historical event where there's any kind of ambiguity. It's the same thing, like, you know, it's a conspiracy theory, essentially. People love a good conspiracy theory, that Anastasia survived the execution of her family. My understanding is that the body they did not find was actually Marie's, and then they did end up finding both of the missing bodies some years later, so nobody survived, despite all the cons that were run. Nobody from the Romanov family actually survived. But, you know, who are we to get in the way of a good story? The movie Anastasia has an interesting history because everybody, you know, oh, it's Don Bluth selling out, and yeah, I get why people think that. But the story, from what I understand, is that the studio basically said, you know, you've got two options. You can do an adaptation of My Fair Lady, the musical My Fair Lady. You can do a cartoon adaptation of that, or you can do a cartoon adaptation of, there's an older movie about, you know, the myth of Anastasia, essentially a con artist who turned out to be the real thing. So they kind of merged the two. If you know the story of My Fair Lady, the musical, it started as the stage play Pygmalion, and it's essentially about a bet made between two friends that one of them can take a street peddler, essentially, this Cockney woman who was selling flowers by the wayside, and through linguistics lessons, essentially teach her to speak differently and act differently and pass her off as a high society lady. And if you know the 1998 Don Bluth movie Anastasia, you'll notice that has a lot of parallels with the con that Dmitri and Vlad are essentially running using Anya. They're like, oh, you know, this rough around the edges orphan, we're gonna make people believe she's a Romanov. And then, of course, in the movie, because it's a kid's movie and happy endings and all that, it turns out she actually is Anastasia. But, you know, something, amnesia. That's how amnesia works, right? But here you'll see I'm moving on to the landscaping, and I cut a bunch of this out because I'm literally just placing a bunch of the same plants over and over again. All these oopsie-daisies, and then these plants from Romantic Garden stuff. This red and white color scheme I thought looked really nice. And then these trees over here in the corner are from Island Living, these hibiscus trees, and then also the other type of tree there, which I thought just ended up looking really nice and very classy in this, you know, grand entryway where it's so big that we've got a statue sitting on the front porch. I thought about putting in a fountain instead, but I liked the look of the statue better, and also the more water you put on a lot, the harder it is to run. So I wanted to stay away from that. And I didn't want to open Show Live Edit Objects if I didn't have to, because it really bogs down the computer. So I used the Vampire's Ivy up the side, just to give that side of the house a little bit more interest. But now I've opened up the Show Live Edit Objects cheat, and I'm placing a bunch of the artifacts from Jungle Adventure in the archaeology room. And you can see here, they're all dirty still. You know, some of them are labeled as an authenticated skull. Some of them are genuine artifacts and are tagged as such, but again, they're not cleaned up, so you don't get to see them like all shiny. So I could not put these downstairs like on display. What I ended up having to do was download another room from the gallery where somebody had put a collection of all the artifacts. So, you know, she sits some of them around her house to kind of impress people, and again, give this impression that she's just a collector, and, you know, she's definitely not, definitely not like running around tombs herself. But that stone chest there on the left, the crystals there are actually slotted to that. It's actually a table, which I didn't know before I started building with it. So I think that's really cute, but like these little gold frogs just sit so nice on the mantle, and I figured this one in here, you know, Mallory liked that one, and the Silverdoradian government is like, yeah, you know, you can keep some of these we have extras of or something, you know, or she rotates them out, she keeps them on display for a little while, and then she sends them back again just to kind of keep up appearances. But if you can't have a gold calendar plate on the sideboard in your fancy dining room, then where can you have one, I ask you? So, and this little flower here, that's actually one of the bee keep away flowers from that you can buy from the vendors in Selvadorada, and you can use it to like lure the bees away from you. And I thought it just looked kind of nice as a decoration, and it raised pretty well to the height of the mantelpiece. It's just something a little different, just something fun. And then these relics, you know, have a bunch of the relics and bases. These are really cool. They do, depending on like what totem you combine with what base, they do different things, and you have to charge them up with these refined crystals. At least one of them will curse a sim to die. There's one of them that bestows like the blessing of the wallflower, I think it's called, where it just like immediately gives you friendship with a random sim. Which I think is really funny. Jungle Adventure, I think, adds multiple new deaths, because you've got that curse, you've got a different curse that you can get if you don't activate the right temple trap, depending, which actually this thing here is one of the temple traps. And I figured it looked really good as, you know, maybe the trap that you have to get past in order to get into the treasure room. And your Sims will actually route around that. You can still get into the treasure room and use it. I thought maybe you'd have to take it out in order to make the room playable, but no, I tested it. She'll actually just walk around it. So I thought that was really cool. It won't work as a trap because I don't have one of the temple traps in, and I don't think we actually have a way to like make a trap correlate with a trigger anyway. But I thought that ended up looking really cool. And I think also might be the one where we got the poison death. Like, you have the pufferfish nigiri death, which is also kind of poison, but this is like poison gas that you breathe in. So there's like 3 new deaths in Jungle Adventure if you're looking for new ways to kill your Sims. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Just layering the terrain paint here. I've seen Simlessy do that so much. Avalyn does that so much too. And it just ends up, especially with the gravel, making it look like everything is really pinned down and looks like it belongs there. And of course it's Willow Creek, so you have to have a great big willow tree in the back, because obviously. And you'll see there's that stretch of just plain drywall there. I do fix that before I upload it to the gallery, don't worry. I noticed that when I was taking screenshots and I went, oh no, I gotta fix that. So, like I said, this will look a little different on the gallery, but I'm really pleased with it. And yeah, we're basically just doing the finishing touches now. So, like I said, I'm moving all of these cat toys around. I find it really funny that the little yarn ball slots to the piano words there, but like, you know, just scattering them around, because the cats get into everywhere. Like, they definitely get in and they like hang out with Lara while she's doing her work, and giving them little beds so that they can sleep with whichever human they want. They've got the little platforms in Mallory's room, and then I've got the little beds in Lara's room. So if you like what you see, you can download this off the gallery. My ID is just aromanticace. You can also find it under the hashtag aromanticace. I do also stream every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/aromanticace. You can watch me build there. I do the 100 baby challenge. I also do some point and clicks and stuff. So yeah, enjoy whatever it is you do between now and my next video. Catch you later.